The bathroom mirror was cracked in 3 places, distorting Natalie McCarthy's reflection into fractured pieces, exhausted eyes here, swollen belly there, nothing quite whole. 2 a.m. She'd clocked 16 hours today. Breakfast shift at Riley's diner, afternoon stockroom grunt work at Target. Then back to Riley's when Jenny's babysitter fell through. Her feet had swollen past the point of pain into numb, throbbing monuments to bad choices as she peeled off her non-slip work shoes, letting them thud against the bathroom tile wherever physics decided. The fluorescent buzz overhead mixed with bass-heavy reggaeton thumping through the apartment wall, her upstairs neighbor's Friday night bleeding into her bone-deep fatigue. She turned sideways, studying the 6-month curve under her faded nightgown. Sarah had been texting all week. "Send me a bump pic. I need proof you're actually taking care of yourself." Natalie had promised. Tonight. Just one photo to prove everything was fine. That she wasn't falling apart. That she didn't need anyone's pity or help or judgment. The phone felt heavy in her trembling hand as she angled it toward the mirror, trying to capture just her belly. Just proof of survival. The nightgown's neckline slipped. The bathroom lighting turned clinical. Her thumb hit the capture button before her brain registered how much skin the image actually showed. Exhaustion made everything feel distant, like watching someone else's disaster through smudged glass. She pulled up her messages, eyes blurring with fatigue as she scrolled for Sarah's name. Sarah, best friend. Her thumb hovered, pressed. The photo uploaded, message sent. The whooshing sound felt final. Then her vision cleared just enough to read the recipient name beneath the delivered image. Kang Min Jae. Business Solutions. Her heart stopped. Not Sarah. Not her best friend who'd understand. The Korean businessman, whose card she'd kept for 8 months, after that strange encounter at the hotel conference. The man with ink-black tattoos crawling up his neck and eyes, that looked like they'd calculated the cost of her life in seconds. Her hands started shaking so violently she almost dropped the phone. 3 dots appeared immediately. The message came through. 6 words that turned her blood to ice. Stay where you are. I'm coming for you. A second message. A location request. Precise. Demanding. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering into the sink. If you're feeling this story, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from and what you think will happen next. Your support means everything to us. Natalie Chen pressed her palm against the bathroom wall, steadying herself as another wave of nausea rolled through her body. The fluorescent lights of the diner's restroom buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. She'd already worked the breakfast shift at the cafe, pulled a double at the grocery store, and now she was 3 hours into her waitressing gig with 4 more to go. The pregnancy test in her locker had shown positive 6 weeks ago, and every day since felt like walking through quicksand. Brandon's face haunted her, his easy smile that morning after, the way he'd kissed her forehead and promised to call. That was 3 months ago. His number went straight to voicemail now, disconnected or blocked. She didn't know which. Her family couldn't know. Her mother's voice already dripped with disappointment every time they spoke, comparing Natalie to her successful cousins. A baby out of wedlock. That would be the final proof that she was the family failure. Across the city, Min Jae Park stood at his penthouse window, staring at nothing. In his hand, his phone glowed with Natalie's message, a desperate plea from a stranger. A photo of a pregnancy test, words that cut through his carefully constructed armor. I don't know what to do. He won't answer. I'm so scared. The message wasn't meant for him. Wrong number. Delete and move on, that's what logic dictated. But Min Jae couldn't delete it. Because 5 years ago, his sister Min Seo had sent him messages just like this one. Frantic. Terrified. Alone. And he'd been in Singapore, closing a merger that would make him millions, telling himself he'd call her back after the meeting. He'd made that call 3 days later, and by then, she was already gone. 24 years old, pregnant, and dead from complications she'd been too afraid to tell anyone about. The baby died with her. Her lover had disappeared the moment she told him. Just like this, Brandon had disappeared on Natalie. Min Jae had built an empire after Min So's death, became the fixer that powerful people called when they needed impossible problems solved. But he couldn't fix the one thing that mattered, couldn't bring back his sister, couldn't rewrite that day when he'd chosen business over family. Now fate had dropped a second chance into his hands, a wrong number that felt anything but wrong. He typed a response, his fingers steady despite the thunder in his chest. "You're not alone anymore." Min Jae stood in the lobby, like he'd materialized from thin air. Designer coat still perfect, despite 18 hours of travel. Eyes hollow with something that looked like grief. Natalie's heart stopped when she saw him through the glass doors, her hand freezing on the mailbox key. She'd known he would come. Part of her had been waiting for it, dreading it, rehearsing what she'd say when the inevitable happened. But standing face to face with him now, all her prepared words dissolved into panic. "You need to leave." Her voice came out stronger than she felt as she pushed through the lobby door, blocking his path to the elevator. "I don't know how you found me, but when did you last eat?" The question caught her off guard. She'd expected anger, demands, threats even. Not this quiet intensity that made her skin prickle with unease. "That's none of your business." "When is your next doctor's appointment?" He stepped closer, and she saw the exhaustion etched into his face, the way his jaw worked like he was holding back words that might crack him open. "Have you seen anyone? Do you have insurance? Are you—" "Stop." She held up a hand, hating how it trembled. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to fly across the world and pretend to care about—" "Pretend?" Something flashed in his eyes, raw and sharp enough to make her step back. "You think I'm pretending? I think you're trying to control the situation." Her chin lifted even as fear crawled up her spine. This was Min Jae Park, the man who'd built an empire by the time he was 30, who negotiated billion-dollar deals before breakfast. Of course he was trying to control this. "But you can't. This is my life, my decision. And I'm handling it." "Handling it." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're 23 years old, working 2 jobs, living in a studio apartment in—" He stopped himself, ran a hand through his hair, in a gesture so uncharacteristically agitated, it frightened her more than anything else. "I'm not here to fight with you." "Then why are you here?" The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. In it, Natalie stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, her hands trembling as she calculated days until homelessness. $300 short. Always $300 short, no matter how many shifts she picked up or how many meals she skipped. She crumpled the paper and shoved it into her purse, refusing to let Mrs. Chen from 4B see her cry. The next morning, her landlord called with confusion thick in his voice. "Your rent's been paid. Full month, plus late fees." "That's impossible. Check cleared yesterday. Anonymous money order." She hung up slowly, that familiar dread pooling in her stomach, the same feeling she'd had when her car repair was mysteriously covered. When the check engine light she couldn't afford to fix suddenly went dark after someone left an envelope of cash under her windshield wiper. 2 days later, a package arrived. Prenatal vitamins. The expensive kind her doctor recommended but her Medicaid wouldn't cover. No return address. No note. Then the phone call that made her blood run cold. "Miss Rivera, this is Dr. Patel's office calling about your scholarship appointment. We have you scheduled for next Tuesday at 2 o'clock for your 20-week ultrasound and comprehensive prenatal screening." "I didn't apply for any scholarship." "Oh." Papers shuffled. It says here the foundation covering your care specifically requested we reach out. They've prepaid everything, ultrasounds, blood work, delivery costs. You're fully covered through postpartum. Natalie's chest tightened. She knew exactly one person with the resources to orchestrate this level of invasion. She found the hotel easily enough. Of course, he'd chosen the most expensive one in the city. The concierge tried to stop her, but she brushed past him into the elevator, her fury propelling her upward toward the penthouse suite. Min-jae opened the door before she could knock, unsurprised, wearing that same maddeningly calm expression. "You don't own me because you saw one picture," she shouted, not caring who heard. He stepped aside, gesturing her into the suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city she could barely afford to live in. "I don't want to own you, Natalie. I want to make sure you and your daughter survive." The word daughter hit her like a physical blow. She grabbed the doorframe for support. "I haven't told anyone the gender," she whispered. "I know. How could you possibly?" Understanding crashed over her. Cold and violating. "You accessed my medical records." He didn't deny it. Didn't apologize. Just watched her with those dark eyes that seemed to calculate every possible outcome of this conversation. "Get out of my life," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't need your money. I don't need your help. I need you to leave us alone." But even as she said it, she felt her daughter kick a reminder of the impossible choice between pride and survival. The Honda's check engine light had been blinking for 3 days before the entire dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree on Tuesday morning. Natalie stood in the parking lot of her apartment complex, staring at the smoking hood, while her phone showed 20 minutes until her ultrasound appointment. She was still cursing under her breath when Min-jae's Tesla pulled up beside her. "Don't," she said before he could speak. "Your car is literally on fire." "It's just steam, Natalie." He was already out of his car, phone in hand. "I'm calling you a tow truck, and I'm driving you to your appointment. You can hate me the entire way there." She wanted to argue, wanted to call an Uber, a cab, her mother, anyone but him. But the baby was doing somersaults against her bladder, and she'd already rescheduled this appointment twice. "Fine. But I'm picking the radio station." The ultrasound technician smiled at them like they were a normal couple, and Natalie didn't have the energy to correct her. She watched Min-jae's face as the grainy image appeared on screen, the way his breath caught, how his fingers gripped the edge of the chair. When the technician left them alone for a moment, he stared at the printout like it held the secrets of the universe. "I'm hungry," Natalie announced, breaking the spell. "Starving, actually." He took her to a Korean BBQ place in the Arts District, the kind with individual grills at each table and side dishes that kept appearing like magic. She watched him cook the meat with the same precision he probably brought to board meetings, turning each piece at exactly the right moment. "Min Seo would have loved this place," he said quietly, not looking up from the grill. "She had this thing about Korean food after we visited Seoul. Made me take her to every restaurant in a 50-mile radius." Natalie wrapped a piece of bulgogi in lettuce, suddenly understanding the weight he carried. "Tell me about her." So he did. About the camping trips and the awful knock-knock jokes and the way she'd reorganize his apps while he slept. About the morning she didn't wake up and how the silence in his house had become unbearable. "I had a scare," Natalie heard herself say. "First trimester, bleeding at work. I drove myself to the ER and sat there for 4 hours, convinced I was losing the baby." His hands stopped moving. The tongs clattered against the grill. "I didn't tell anyone. Not my family, not friends. Just me and a magazine from 2015 inches. A waiting room that smelled like antiseptic." She met his eyes. "So I get it. The fear. The need to control something. Anything. I'm sorry you were alone. I'm sorry you were too. She reached for another lettuce wrap. Here's the deal. You can help. Doctor's appointments. Baby shopping. Whatever. But no more secrets. No more making decisions about my life without asking me first. He nodded, something like relief crossing his face. No more secrets. I mean it, Minjai. The second you go rogue billionaire on me again, you'll make my life a living hell. I believe you. He almost smiled. Should we order more banchan? Obviously. And that spicy pork thing. Twins are demanding it. The doorbell chimed at 7 sharp, and Minjay's entire body went rigid. Natalie watched the color drain from his face as he straightened his collar for the 3rd time in as many minutes. They're early, he muttered, moving toward the door with the grim determination of a man walking to his execution. His mother entered first, her designer handbag clutched like a shield, her eyes sweeping the modest apartment with barely concealed disdain. Minjay's older brother, Sung-ho, followed, his expression carved from stone. They bowed curtly to Minjay, then turned their attention to Natalie with the warmth of a January wind. Mother, Hyung, this is Natalie. Minjay's voice carried an unfamiliar edge of pleading. Natalie, my family. My family. It's wonderful to meet you both. Natalie extended her hand, her smile bright despite the ice radiating from the visitors. Minjay's mother stared at the offered hand for 3 excruciating seconds before giving it the briefest touch, as if Natalie might be contagious. They sat for dinner, the silence broken only by the clinking of silverware. Natalie had spent hours preparing bulgogi and kimchi jjigae, hoping to bridge the divide with food. Minjay's mother took a single bite and set down her chopsticks. So, his mother began in clipped English, each word carefully selected. You are carrying a child. Yes, ma'am, I'm due in 4 months. And the father? The question landed like a slap. Mother Minjay started, but Sung-ho cut him off. It's a reasonable question, Minjay. His brother's English was flawless, his tone surgical. Our family has certain expectations. Standards. Natalie's fork clattered against her plate. She could feel their judgment like a physical weight, crushing the air from her lungs. Excuse me, she whispered, pushing back from the table. She made it to the hallway before the tears came, pressing her back against the wall as their voices drifted from the dining room. They weren't even trying to be quiet. Minjay. Sung-ho's voice carried that particular blend of authority and concern that only older brothers master. This American woman is using you to replace Min-se. You're being manipulated. Natalie's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a sob. You think I don't see it? Sung-ho continued. You lose your daughter, and suddenly this stranger appears with a convenient baby. She's exploiting your grief. That's not. You've known her how long? Weeks. And you're playing father to another man's child while Minseo's ashes sit cold in Seoul. The words shattered something inside Natalie. She grabbed her coat from the rack, her vision blurred with tears, and slipped out the front door before Minjay could stop her. The November rain soaked through her thin jacket within seconds, but she kept walking, her brother's apartment 6 blocks away feeling like 6 miles. Behind her, she heard the door open, heard Minjay calling her name, but his family's verdict rang louder than his voice, drowning out everything else. The glass doors of the cafe swung open during the lunch rush, and Natalie looked up from wiping down a table to see Brandon Cole walking toward her with a bouquet of white roses. Her heart stopped. He looked exactly as she remembered, sandy hair styled perfectly, designer watch catching the light, that easy smile that once made her believe in fairy tales. But now it just made her stomach turn. Natalie. His voice was soft, apologetic. Please. Just 5 minutes. Her co-worker Jenny shot her a concerned look from behind the counter. Natalie set down her rag with trembling hands. You need to leave. I made a mistake. Brandon stepped closer, lowering his voice. The lunch crowd pretended not to watch. A terrible mistake. I was scared and I ran. But I haven't stopped thinking about you. About our baby. The words felt like a punch. Our baby. He'd never said those words before. When she'd told him she was pregnant, he'd looked at her like she'd announced a terminal illness. You told me to handle it, Natalie said quietly, her voice shaking. You gave me money and walked away. I know. Brandon's eyes, those blue eyes she'd once loved, filled with what looked like genuine remorse. I panicked. But I've had time to think, and I want to be a father. I want us to be a family. Co-parent. Do this right. Natalie felt the baby kick, as if responding to his father's voice. The timing was cruel. Just days ago, Min Jae's family had looked at her like she was dirt on their expensive shoes. Mrs. Kim's words still echoed in her head. This is why people should stay with their own kind. Why now? She whispered. Brandon reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Because I can't stop thinking about what I threw away. You. Our child. The chance to build something real. He squeezed her fingers. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking anyway. Let me prove I've changed. Through the cafe window, she didn't see Min Jae's Bentley pull up to the curb. Didn't see him step out, a bag of the ginger tea she loved in his hand, ready to surprise her during her break. But Min Jae saw them. Saw Brandon holding Natalie's hand, saw the flowers, saw the way she looked at the father of her child with an expression he couldn't quite read. Pain mixed with something that might have been hope. He stood frozen on the sidewalk, the tea bag crumpling in his grip. This was what she deserved, he thought. Not a Korean man whose family would always reject her. Not someone whose mother called her child a half-breed. She deserved the baby's real father. A fresh start. Normalcy. Min Jae turned and walked back to his car, leaving the tea in a trash can. He would still make sure her rent was paid, her bills covered. But his heart? He'd start building the walls back up, brick by careful brick. Inside the cafe, Natalie finally pulled her hand away from Brandon's. I need time to think. But the seed of doubt had been planted. The kick started just after midnight, sharp and insistent against Natalie's ribs, like tiny fists demanding attention. She'd felt flutters before, gentle reminders of the life growing inside her, but this was different. This was urgent, almost frantic, as if the baby sensed her restlessness and mirrored it back tenfold. Natalie pressed both hands against her swollen belly, trying the breathing techniques from her pregnancy app, but the movements only intensified. Her heart hammered as she reached for her phone, scrolling past Brandon's goodnight text from 2 hours ago. Her thumb hovered over Min Jae's number for only a second before she pressed call. He answered on the first ring. Are you okay? I don't know. The baby won't stop kicking and Her voice cracked. Can you come? I'm already on my way. 13 minutes later, he was at her door in sweatpants and an inside-out t-shirt, hair disheveled, eyes wild with concern. The sight of him, breathless and worried, sent warmth flooding through her chest. Show me, he said softly. Natalie lifted her shirt hesitantly, exposing her rounded belly. The baby kicked hard enough that they both saw the ripple across her skin. Min Jae's breath caught. Slowly, as if approaching something sacred, he knelt before her and placed both hands on her stomach. Anyong, he whispered, his voice dropping into Korean. The words flowed like music, tender and melodic. It's okay, little one. Your needs rest. The baby kicked once more against his palm, then gradually settled. Min Jae kept talking, switching between Korean and English, telling stories about his own childhood, about his grandmother's garden, about the first time he held his nephew, His thumbs traced gentle circles on her skin. Natalie's fingers found his hair without thinking, threading through the soft strands. Min-jae looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his dark eyes stole her breath. Time suspended between them, heavy with everything unspoken. "I should go," he said, but he didn't move. "Brandon can give you the normal life you deserve. The house with the white fence, the steady job. What if normal isn't what I want anymore?" Natalie's hand slid from his hair to cup his jaw, feeling the roughness of stubble beneath her palm. Min-jae rose slowly, bringing his face level with hers. The space between them crackled with electricity. His gaze dropped to her lips. Her phone exploded with vibrations on the coffee table. Both of them flinched. Brandon's name flashed across the screen with 3 consecutive texts, each more demanding than the last. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering? I drove by. There's a car I don't recognize outside." The spell shattered. Min-jae stepped back, and the cold air that rushed between them felt like loss. Brandon showed up at Natalie's apartment on a Tuesday evening, with flowers from the grocery store, and a ring that caught the light wrong. It was too small for the box it came in, rattling when he set it on her kitchen counter. "We should make this official," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Before the baby comes. It's the right thing to do." Natalie stared at the ring. She'd imagined this moment since she was a girl, the proposal, the joy, the certainty. But standing in her cramped kitchen with Brandon's cologne too strong in the small space, all she felt was cold. "I thought you wanted to wait," she said carefully. "You said we shouldn't rush." That was before. He reached for her hand. "Things are different now. The baby needs stability. A real family." The way he said it made her skin prickle. Real family. As if what she'd had with her mother hadn't been real. As if love only counted when it came with a marriage certificate and a man's last name. "I need time to think," she told him. Brandon's jaw tightened, but he smiled. "Of course. Take your time. Just not too much time, okay? We've got a deadline coming." After he left, Natalie sat on her couch and cried, though she couldn't name exactly why. Min-jae saw the ring the next day, when Natalie came to work. She'd put it on some desperate attempt to convince herself this was what she wanted, but her hands shook when she served his coffee. "Congratulations," he said, the word bitter on his tongue. "Thank you," she whispered, and fled to the kitchen. Min-jae lasted 3 hours before he made the call. He'd promised himself he'd let her go, let her build the life she deserved. But something was wrong. He could feel it the way you feel rain coming before the first drop falls. The investigator's report arrived within a week, and Min-jae read it twice before he believed what he was seeing. Brandon's wealthy parents. The trust fund contingent on an heir. The overheard conversation at a country club where Brandon had laughed about playing the long game, with a waitress too stupid to see it coming. Marriage. Custody. Divorce. The baby. Min-jae's hands crushed the papers. Brandon wasn't marrying Natalie because he loved her. He was marrying her because she was poor, vulnerable, and carrying the one thing his parents wanted more than their disapproval: a grandchild. A Kim legacy heir they could mold, once they'd removed the unsuitable mother from the picture. Min-jae stood at his office window, watching the city lights blur. He'd stayed away to protect her, but staying away now would destroy her. He picked up his phone. Some distances, he realized, weren't meant to be kept. Min-jae's jet touched down at LAX 18 hours after the phone call that had turned his world inside out. He didn't go to his penthouse, didn't stop at the office. He went straight to the address his assistant had provided, a tired apartment building in Koreatown, where the elevator was broken and the hallways smelled like kimchi and old carpet. He found her in the lobby, arms full of laundry, face pale with exhaustion. "Natalie." She froze. The laundry basket slipped, and he caught it before it hit the ground. For a moment they just stood there, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, neither of them breathing. "What are you doing here?" Her voice came out sharp, defensive. "How did you find me? When did you last eat?" The question surprised them both. "That's none of your... When is your next doctor's appointment?" He set the laundry basket down carefully. "Are you taking prenatal vitamins? Do you have insurance?" Natalie's hands clenched into fists. "You can't just show up here. You can't just..." Her voice cracked. "You made it very clear what you thought of me, what you wanted, or didn't want." The words hit him like a physical blow. "I know. So why are you here? To make sure I actually get rid of it? To pay me off and send me away?" "No." The word came out raw. "I'm here because it's mine. You don't want it." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." Natalie's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I saw your face when I told you. I saw exactly what you thought of me." Min Jae stepped closer, and she backed away until she hit the mailboxes. But he didn't crowd her. He just stood there. This man who commanded boardrooms and bent industries to his will, looking lost in a shabby apartment lobby. "I was afraid," he said quietly. "That doesn't mean I don't want my child. I don't believe you. You don't have to." "Not yet." He pulled a card from his pocket and set it on top of her laundry. "But when you're ready to talk, really talk, call me. I want you to leave." He nodded, already moving toward the door. But he paused at the threshold, looking back at her. "Please eat something. Please." Then he was gone. Natalie stood shaking in the empty lobby for a long time. When she finally made it upstairs, she found a bag of groceries outside her apartment door, fresh fruit, prenatal vitamins, ginger tea for nausea, and a note in precise handwriting. "You don't have to do this alone." She cried until she couldn't breathe, the card clutched in her fist. The contractions started during the lunch rush, sharp and too early. Natalie gripped the counter, her water breaking across the tile floor. Min Jae had once knelt on to clean her spilled tips. "Hospital," Min Jae said, already reaching for his keys. "Now." In the car, Natalie couldn't breathe through the panic. 7 months. Too soon. Too small. "What do you need?" Min Jae's voice cut through her terror. "Tell me what helps." Not what he thought she needed. Not what he'd decided was best. What she needed. "Talk to me," she gasped. "About anything. Just, don't let me disappear." So he talked. About Min Seo's terrible singing voice. About his mother's kimchi recipe that never turned out right. About the first time he'd seen Natalie smile, really smile, and how it had cracked something open in his chest he'd thought sealed forever. He held her hand through every contraction, never flinching when she crushed his fingers, never telling her to calm down or breathe differently. He just stayed. The baby came fast and furious, a tiny fighter with Natalie's stubborn chin and lungs that proved size meant nothing. 4 pounds, 6 ounces. Perfect. When the nurse placed the infant in Min Jae's arms, he broke. Tears streamed down his face as he cradled the impossibly small life. And for the first time since Min Seo died, he let himself feel joy without drowning in guilt. His mother arrived an hour later, his father close behind. She stopped in the doorway, watching her son hold this child with such careful reverence, and finally understood. This wasn't replacement. This was continuation. Min Seo's name living on, not in grief, but in love. Brandon's custody claim dissolved when Min Jae's evidence hit the family court. Text messages, recorded conversations, a paper trail of calculated manipulation. His parents' lawyers vanished overnight. 3 months later, Natalie's apartment had transformed into a small business headquarters. Her online consulting company was thriving, built on the same fierce determination that had carried her through every shift at the restaurant. Min Jae had restructured his operations, working remotely more, present more, learning that wealth meant nothing if you spent it alone. Min Seo McCarthy Kang slept in her bassinet between them, tiny fists clenched, like she was ready to fight the world. I kept your business card, Natalie admitted one evening, nursing the baby while Min Jae heated bottles for later. All those months. I told myself I threw it away, but I didn't. Why? She looked at him over their daughter's dark hair. Part of me always knew I might need someone who understood what it meant to lose everything. Someone who knew how to rebuild. Min Jae smiled, a real smile, the kind Min So would have recognized. And now I'm learning that needing someone doesn't mean losing myself. Natalie shifted the baby, confident in her movements. It just means I don't have to carry everything alone. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, 3 people who'd learned love from loss built something new from broken pieces. Some families aren't born. They're chosen, fought for, and earned.